maybe that is for the best for him and his development and Texas and how they do. They need to take a good hard look at that film because Ohio State is not the only tough defense they're going to face this year. So and playing on the road is very different than playing at home. Playing someplace like in the shoe, people discount it. A lot of people discount how difficult that is. It's a tough place to play. So we'll see. I'm not worried about losing to Grambling. Like I said, I expect them to win by a very good margin. But to your point, Rachel, if they don't, it better be because I see them experimenting with some different packages in the second half. I see some names I don't know getting some playing time.
Exactly.
To kind of figure out how they're doing and kind of get some film on them to measure them because it's a long season.
Yeah.
Very long season.
And that offense on Saturday left a lot to be desired. They still won the game, but they only scored 2 touchdowns. So
and thankful for the defense.
Yeah, I want those receivers to get some more reps, with Carnell and Jeremiah. So I want that relationship to, be put on display. The thing with Arch Manning is, I think he's highly overrated because if he was that good, he would have replaced Quinn Ewers, and Quinn Ewers would have sat, his senior year if he was that good. He came in here highly touted, generational, one of his first passes was at the feet of his receiver a couple yards away. Ohio State, and what did I say, Kate? I said Ohio State would win by at least 7. If you can get to Arch early and often and disguise coverages and stuff like that, it was a coming out party for Matt Patricia as well for what he was scheming up defensively. And, Texas really couldn't get a rhythm going. And, the heroes of that game were the defense. I believe that they stuffed 4 fourth downs, which is just crazy. Right there on the goal line, they were able to stop Texas from being able to move that ball in, and everybody just highly touted. They had a lot of players coming back, and Ohio State lost 14 to the draft. Where's that leadership on the team going to be? But I just didn't see anything from Arch Manning that really impressed me. So, I really need Julian Sand to get ready for this Big Ten schedule because the Big Ten, they have 6 teams ranked in the top 25. So, this ain't your mama's Big Ten. This is your daddy's.
It's not.
Where they are proving the Big Ten is one of the best conferences in the country right now. So I need to see Julian Sam, more of him, and getting him out there and getting him more plans. Well, obviously he's a starter, but having him link up with his receivers some more, and also that running game too. We didn't do too much as far as running the ball. So hats off to the defense for helping us win that game.
I mean, in general, in that game, we owned the clock. Time of possession, we had it, but they had more first downs than we did. They had 100 more yards than we did of total offense. They had more passing yards. They had considerably more rushing yards. Their problem is they also had more penalties, and they had the only turnover of the game. We didn't turn the ball over. Buckeyes only had 2 penalties, which is huge. So you got to control the clock. That's where your defense comes in. That's where you let them gain, but then you stop them. You take that ball away. You make them kick it away. That's helpful. But when I look at just our stats, Julian Sayin wasn't great. His QBR might have been like 105, but he only had 126 yards, and some of that was his own run-in. But for CJ Donaldson to have 67 rushing yards and then James People had 20, I don't see balance in the running game. Jeremiah Smith dropped some passes. I don't know if Sayin was nervous or what was with that. His accuracy was off a little bit, and Carnell Tate ended up actually having more yards than Jeremiah did. I think they need more time in real game situations to play together. That's why I'm very interested to see how they do this week, because they shouldn't. I'm going to go with seeing Texas as their first week, that it was all up in their head. They're thinking about last year. They're looking at the rankings. They're feeling this intense need that they got to do all the things. And maybe against Grambling, they can relax a little bit and just play their game. and just play their game and see what they got and see what they do. So I expect a very different game this Saturday than we saw last weekend.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
They're
they're
gonna
going
win.
to win.
They're
You know,
going to win.
obviously it's against a historically black college that doesn't have the resources, that Ohio State does. It's a storied program, because I don't know if you guys saw the clip from the press conference where Grambling's coach said, they got a great band, we got a great band. And he was like, just kidding. Okay, back to the game. So,
I
I
ain't gonna
don't
lie, that's the highlight reason why I'm going, because I want to see Grambling band.
I mean, they put up 55 points last week. Grambling did.
Against
Grambling
who?
put up 55 points against Langston. I mean,
wow.
they've got.
They ain't gonna put up 55 against Ohio State.
They will not.
No.
They got a couple very nice guys that play quarterback in Fry and Tease It. They've got Trey Bradford at running back had over 50 yards. Andre Cruz had almost 50 yards. Byron Eaton Jr. had almost 50 yards. They've got a very good core of running backs. And even their receivers, they had 5 guys with 30 or more yards. So they have a lot of weapons. They are going to test the Buckeyes defense because they got a lot of places they can go with the ball. And that's not what we're used to. That's usually not Big Ten football. You got one running back and maybe 2 receivers to worry about. And so your defense, there's not a lot of options of guys they have to cover when we're facing other Big Ten teams. They just are good enough that they can get away with just having a couple of them. And Grambling's got a ton of weapons. So I'm not saying it's going to be a cakewalk. The defense is going to have their work to do. But if we can get pressure on those quarterbacks, that'll change all of it.
I want to introduce Paris McGee Jr. from The Ohio State University, another Ohio State University graduate, was a gymnast for Ohio State, and he is with Cleveland.com. So you're a social media reporter, right, Paris?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, yeah. So, Paris, happy to have you here. Welcome. We were just talking a little Ohio State football, a little, is Arch Manning overrated? And, this offense needs to get a lot of reps together to, compete in the Big Ten, because I think they're better than Penn State as well. They're going to beat Penn State.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, Penn State is ranked number 2, but, hoping that this offense gets a lot of quality reps compared to what we saw on Saturday. And I did predict the Buckeyes victory. I said they were going to win by 7. I went so far as to say they were going to win by 14, which they almost did, because they almost kept them scoreless, but they won by 7 points. What were your thoughts and observations about the Ohio State game?
It was a good game. It was a decent game. I don't want to have too much expectations because it is just the first game, and it's so hard playing such big matchups in the first game. Had this been a season-ending game, we would have saw a much different Texas and Ohio State team. Again, I believe that Julian, as a quarterback, is still even getting comfortable with his weapons, some of the receivers. So, it was kind of early to really put an opinion on, but overall, it was a good game from both teams. I did expect Arch Manning to potentially have a better game, a better showing. I will say I was a little shocked with that, but perhaps, he can, it's the first game, so maybe he can really turn things around by the end of the season. But I did expect, because he is, if I'm not mistaken, a junior by now. I believe he's a redshirt junior.
Yeah.
So, I just expected him to be a little bit more equipped, than what he looked, a little bit more prepared. That is my take on that. But in terms of the Buckeyes, I think they look fairly good. Again, it's the first game. I don't want them doing too much, or having to do too much physically. And I think that we'll see next week. I think they'll really put on a show against Grambling.
Yeah, it's gonna get so bad. I feel sorry for Grambling, but I propose
they're gonna make some money. They're gonna go home with some money, and it'll benefit the school, and they need that. So that's
$2 million
away with that.
Yeah,
yeah, $2 million paycheck. And a lot of those athletes, obviously probably wanted to play for schools like Ohio State.
Correct.
they're going to have the opportunity to play in the shoe. And, obviously that's, college football's, wonder stadiums. So,
Yeah.
they're going to make out like a fat rat at the end of the day.
Well, and they're going to get a lot of views. A whole lot of people are going to watch Grambling play football this weekend that probably won't see another one of their games all year. And you're going to see some names you're going to think about. And some of these kids may enter the portal next year, or they may just stay where they are. And sometimes that exposure is between the paycheck for the school and that exposure to everyone that's going to watch this game is really enough.
I agree. I was thinking the same thing, the exposure for some of these guys to play in such a big stadium in front of such a rowdy crowd that they don't get a chance to normally play. And I think it'll be really great for the team, again, for their future, because who's to say that some of these guys can't make it to the big league next, year, the years after they come. So I think that this experience will be very beneficial for them.
Yeah, but Ohio State also needs to stop scheduling these cupcakes too.
Rachel, everybody else does. I'm excited that we had Texas week 1. There were like 3 games week 1 that were big games. Everybody else was playing somebody they were just giving them a paycheck and paying them to come in and lose. I was pretty excited that we started the year with a really big game, but that's just the way it is. You got to put people on your schedule. They schedule a few years out. You can only play the people that are willing to play you. A bunch of the MAC schools are tired of the paycheck and tired of getting beaten up, and they don't want to play the Buckeyes anymore. It's so
demoralizing to get beat by 70. You know what I'm saying?
But I don't think they will. I really don't think they will.
Or no time soon. None of them schools.
30 maybe, but I don't think 70. We'll see.
Oh,
and you never know. We could get another Appalachian State versus Michigan. One of these games this weekend. I think there's only 2 games all weekend that have ranked opponents. Everybody else is doing what the Buckeyes are doing this weekend. And we all saw what Appalachian State did to Michigan. You don't know. You got to play the games. You don't know. This is a Super Bowl for some of these teams that are coming in here like a Grambling after the performance they had last week. They're either going to come in kind of starstruck and awestruck, or they're going to come in like, listen, this is our chance to shine. They're going to be fired up. And if you're a Buckeye, you risk looking past them. So these are those trap games. A whole lot of the ranked teams have games like that this weekend where these underdogs got something to prove. You're going to get their best game this weekend. So you got to give them yours.
That is true. That is true. At the end of the day, a game's still a game, and you gotta, because look at Notre Dame last year. I know they made it to the playoff, but that loss that they had early in the season, the loss of money and the loss in the game, they were not expecting that. But I'm full confident in the Buckeyes, but I feel like that even kind of happened with them in terms of the Nebraska game last season, where they kind of got, I think, a little too comfortable and
correct,
a little too close for their liking. So,
So, what did y'all think of the send off for Lee Corso? Kate, why are you looking like that?
Is this where I'm supposed to tell you I was sad that crazy old white boy's finally gone? I have been sick of him for 10 years. I'm sorry. He's ridiculous.
I'm glad you said it.
Putting on the helmet is ridiculous.
And it came out your mouth.
It came out me. He needed to go years ago. This whole sentimental Kirk Herbstreit crying. I'm like, peeling onions, and then they videotaped him. I didn't.
I mean, wait. Tell me something I don't know.
For him to go, he was.
I feel like I am telling my age here, because I never had anything against him. I mean, I wasn't a super fan. It was just Lee Corso, it was just, I didn't, like Whitney Houston's famous line, I don't feel anything, so I didn't have any opinions, but it sounds like that you ladies, kind of have some strong feelings about that Lee Corso.
It's just, he's been on, I'm 59. He's been on since I was a kid. Mm-hmm. He still has a flip phone. I mean, he doesn't relate to anyone who's watching the show. Anywhere else you go on ESPN, the minute you're not relevant and the viewers don't relate to you, you're gone.
They have you in the back cutting paper clips, like
absolutely. And he's sitting there, and it's just sitting. he needed to go out years ago on his own terms and gracefully and go, and he didn't. And so I think age finally caught up with them, and they finally let him. I am not a fan of the new guy they got on there. We'll need a whole half hour to talk about that later. I'm not a fan of Pat McAfee. I'm not a fan of people screaming and yelling at me on my radio or on my TV. You don't need to yell at me. You don't need to talk to me like that. And that's where I'm showing my age, right? Don't talk to me like that. Don't talk down to me, and don't scream it. And they got another guy that's going to do that, only he never played the game. At least Pat McAfee played the game, and he's got some cred, if you will, because he knows what it's like to be in an NFL locker room and to play on an NFL team. This guy's just loud, and that's going to get old fast.
Yeah,
I don't see him hanging around long. I don't see it's gonna last.
The average audience isn't, 50 to 70-year-old white guys, and that was Lee's demographic, and they're all old and doing something else. They're not watching the countdown anymore. They don't think it's funny to put the hat on because they're get off my lawn guy now, right?
Right.
And the people with the signs, that's not, they're not watching anymore. The people that like Lee. So it's good that he went. Rachel, you see what you started.
I'm just glad
You never know when she asks me a question what I'm gonna say.
But it was getting kind of bad because you could barely understand what he was saying on Saturday. So, he's 90 years old. It's been time to go. I don't understand why Paris, why don't men want to retire? I don't understand that. But, they gave him a proper send off, and he said, "Give me my first love," which is the Buckeyes head. And, now he gets to ride off into the sunset. So, Kate, we know we got you only for a few minutes. So, we want to go ahead and get into these Browns, Paris Browns for Cleveland.com. So, Paris.
Yes.
First and foremost, how many wins do you have on your schedule? Because me and Kate were able to find 6 to 7. The national narrative is that the Browns will be really bad and they will be in the sweepstakes for Arch Manning. Don't know why. But Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski and Jimmy Haslam was down at Ohio State on the sidelines on Saturday. But how many wins do you have on your schedule?
I don't know. But this is what I will say. I'm not going to put anything past any team. I'm going to be straight up from the gate up. I think that if we have officials that know how to properly officiate games, I believe that if you want to be honest, a lot of Super Bowl teams shouldn't be Super Bowl teams. A lot of teams that may not have done so well honestly could have done better. So my issue honestly isn't even really with the Browns. It's really with something bigger, which is let's start with the officiating. Once we get that out the way, in terms of the Browns, I think they have everything they need at least to have 6 wins. No doubt. I think my biggest concern is just the longevity in which Joe Flacco can be able to perform at an elite level every game. I know that the Browns are very confident in Dylan Gabriel. I don't have full confidence in him in the way that they do, but at the same time, I don't practice with him like they do. So with all due respect, I support, and I don't have anything against their judgment with that. I do like Shador. I do think that he does need, this is how I feel. If I can merge Shador's athleticism with Dylan Gabriel's football IQ, I think we would have the perfect quarterback. The problem is we don't have it all in one. So what's more so...
The problem is Dylan Gabriel is short.
I just went so Kate. They talk about me because I'll be like that little left hand, little lefty.
So what is so interesting? And if I'm not mistaken, I actually think I have a clip of this interview. There was one player, and it was the first time I've ever heard this. It was one player who actually made a comment, and he said that the dangers of having short quarterbacks is that sometimes you actually can't see them and you don't know where they are on the field. It was the first time I've heard that from that perspective. And because he didn't have so much of a bad performance.
Too long for me.
Well, he got
number one.
That last performance that they had at home, it wasn't as bad as South Carolina. I think it's so hard to judge him as a quarterback And Shador equally when they're not using the same weapons, when they don't have the same string of offensive linemen. It's just it's imbalanced. So that's just my only concern with that. But again, I think the Browns could really do a decent job this season. But I think it's just really going to come down to their offense. It's going to come down to their quarterback. I think that's just the biggest thing. How well can Joe Flacco be throughout the season, and how adequate can those backup quarterbacks be when they need to get in the game? I think the defense, I'm not worried about. I think the defense is good, but when you have the defense playing majority of the game, you're losing it.
Yeah,
and I think that's the
problem. I don't pay any attention to those people who are talking about us getting Arch Manning in the draft, because I believe our quarterback of the future is already on this roster. It's either going to be Dylan Gabriel or it's going to be Shador. Clearly, they're using Shador as in a developmental role, and they've got Dylan in there to back up. I think by week 8 or 9, depending on what their record is, we may see more of Dylan Gabriel. They may decide they need to see what they've got in him and assess that situation better. My problem right now is Joe Burrow is my fantasy football quarterback, and I'm benching him week 1. Rachel, don't listen. Close your ears. I'm benching him week 1 for my backup, who is JJ McCarthy. Because as much as I think Joe Burrow will be fine for the whole season, he's not going to be okay week 1. He's never okay in Cleveland. I think the Cleveland defense is going to give him a very hard time. I don't know if we can win this game, but I don't believe Burrow's going to have great numbers. I think it's going to come down to turnovers and that kind of stuff for week 1. But I benched Joe Burrow. Am I crazy? Should I be playing him? Anybody?
So this is my take. I hear you, Pierce. I do. The reality is we won't never get fair officiating. I just believe it depends on who we are playing. I have the Browns between 6 and 7 wins this season. I initially was hardcore at 7, but I'm kind of wavering between 6 and 7 right now. The other thing I feel like we keep hearing they need to develop. I'm okay with Flacco being week 1. I'm so okay with it. And even really week 2 going into Baltimore. However, we looked at JD over in Washington. They put him out there, and with the right support and cast, then you can make something happen. So if we are going to see these quarterbacks do anything, we can't want them to be our savior to bring us to at the final, help get us to that push into the playoffs. You need to see them starting to play now. You only develop when you get to play. You don't develop on the bench. Now, I happen to be in Charlotte for that game, and I was right down real close, and I got to see them real up close. One thing I can say about Shador is I can tell that he done been to the school of Tom Brady for sure. Then when I looked at them play in Philly, like you put him, was it Philly or was it here? What game? The last game?
The last game was here.
Here against the Rams.
Right. So y'all put him out there with like the Uber drivers, literally just suit up and go play, because we knew that they wasn't going to be there on Monday.
Yeah.
So, it was like agreed. It wasn't an even playing field. He didn't have the best game. But on top of not having the best game, you also didn't give him anything really to play with. So I would like to see them much sooner than week 7 or 8 if they're going to be effective with this team. The other thing I feel like is that we got to hope that our team stays healthy. Our defense has a real shaky. I just read Miles might be a little bit hurt right now. Yeah, I don't know. So what does that look like for us Sunday? Where we have pretty much owned Cincinnati for a little while, that could play a factor on Sunday if Miles does not play. So You kind of got to watch that, and you got to watch Denzel. Kind of, he gets a little bit fragile like a flower too. So, we gonna be dependent on some offense. So I hope that we see, some of that just to, in the meantime. That's just my opinion.
I mean, I don't hate the idea of having Joe Flacco for just a couple weeks. When I was looking at this schedule, and I think we even talked about it the last time we were all three here without you, Paris. Sorry, it was girls' night. You're starting the season in division. And one of the most important things you need to do after a 3 and whatever season is you need to get some early wins and let the rest of these team know that you're not just a guy filling a spot while we figure out the quarterback situation. This is a team. There are offensive, defensive, and special teams players. We need to get some early wins. And if that means Joe just plays weeks 1 and 2 against the division where he's got experience,
I agree with that.
And week 3, they bring Dylan in, or maybe even 3 or 4. I wouldn't hate that. I love that we're getting Joe for at least these first 2 division games. And I think, Paris, it'll be interesting to watch them. One of the things the Browns did, I think, poorly with Baker Mayfield, he's not the tallest quarterback either, is they didn't do a good job of giving him passing lanes in the offense so he could see through. Because if he can't see the ball, to your point, the defenders can't see him. And so Oregon did a very nice job of disguising their line so that Dylan could move side to side. He could see where his guys were and then duck for cover again. So the defense couldn't find him. It wasn't that they had a bad rush. It's they didn't know where he was. You're absolutely right. If it takes them a few weeks to work through that in practice and get that to where they're doing that in a game, that'll be really interesting because that's all about coaching and scheming for a quarterback of his size. And maybe they done learned something since Baker left about how to do that because Tampa Bay absolutely knows how to do that.
And I think both should.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was gonna say I think both Shador and Dylan Gabriel are both good quarterbacks. I really think it really comes down to the coaching. I think the problem is that it's gonna be whether you have a coach that knows how to coach his player, because he did not, as you said, do a bad job at Oregon. And at the same time, watching Shador and how he's been playing, Shador is not a bad quarterback. Shador has grown to really be a quarterback that I know can really be successful in the NFL. But I think it's going to come down to the coaching. And I feel like I'm not sure if the coaches are going to do what Oregon did to really help Dylan. But at the same time, I'm not sure if the coaches are going to be there for Shador. And I'm just going to keep it at that.
Yeah.
So I was going to go there and say it for you.
I didn't want to say it,
No, I'm gonna
I gotta see him tomorrow.
I'm gonna say it. I don't have confidence enough in Kevin that he can get that coaching under control. Yes. I figured that out as we were drafting tight ends. So I think he's trying to go back that direction. So I don't have confidence in that. I also know these people in Cleveland. I know that I don't care if Dylan go out there and throw 6 pick 6 in a row. They gonna make an excuse as to why it happened, why we need to keep him in, why are we gonna give him another chance, and why it is not, why Shador ain't gonna play. So I don't have the confidence in our coaching staff that they gonna do right by the team. If you ask me, I'm willing to say that if we don't make that 6, it's gonna be on purpose with a QB issue, and they're gonna be waiting to see what these draft picks are gonna look like because they didn't stack the deck on getting draft picks. That is just where I'm at with it. Yeah. I would like to hold face and really think it's going to be something different, but my inner intuition is saying differently.
I agree.
And I'm hoping for something different this year too. And I shouldn't be. Rachel tells me all the time. I tell Rachel all the time, I'm quitting predicting we're going to win until we actually win. I'm done drinking the Kool-Aid, and I'm done with watching this team draft players. Instead of drafting a player that does all the things we want our offense to do, they draft a player with mad skills and then they try to change him into somebody. They take a square peg and try to shove him in a round hole. You know what I'm saying? And I was hoping with this year's draft that when they drafted Dylan Gabriel, that he was someone who had the skills they want, because I still don't know what this offense's identity is. When Nick Chubb was here, I knew what we were. Now I don't know what we are. And I was hoping maybe they were going to work on that identity. And maybe with Dylan, he would help. They would coach him and they would design plays and schemes to go with the things that he's good at and to help him be successful. I think the only reason for me he gets that nod a little bit ahead of Shedeur is just because of the reality that Oregon faced tougher defenses than Colorado did. So Dylan Gabriel, I think, is a little more mentally equipped for the defenses that he's seen in the preseason and that he'll see in the regular season, where Shedeur needs a little bit more time because Colorado just didn't face the same class of defenses that Oregon did. And for me, it was that simple. That's, to me, all Shedeur needs is just a little more time. And it may not even be the whole season. Because, Stacey, I agree with you. The only way these guys are going to get it is to put them in. Put them in. But you've got to try to make them successful. You have to give them weapons. You have to design some plays, some RPOs or some bubble screens or jet sweeps or something simple to give them some confidence and some success early. And you've got to design to them. You can't force them into doing what Joe Flacco does or what you want Deshaun Watson or whatever your offense is going to be. You can't force them into that. And I think that's, Paris, where that coaching comes in. Yes. Are they going to adjust to what these guys do well? Because we need some little successes and some quick wins early this season.
Yes.
Or you're going to lose the players and the locker room and the fans.
Yes.
And again, I think, like you said, the early wins are so important. And I think that's really what Joe is really here for.
Yeah.
For that early season to hopefully later on in the season, one of the two backup quarterbacks can really, start to take on that leadership role and continue to keep the ball rolling. And I this is a little off topic, a little random, but I have to say it. I wonder, and I said this about a week and a half ago at the practice facility, I wonder how not different, but how the offense would be with Judkins playing.
Mm-hmm.
That's something I wonder, because
I saw a conspiracy theory today that he's going to parachute into the stadium on Sunday, pick up the guitar and smash it into the thing and head right onto the field.
Because he was, for me, he was like one of the biggest offensive pieces that were really going to change this offense. And, just to not see him out there and really not have no sort of update on, his current status. For me, it hurts. As a former athlete, it hurts. Knowing the potential that he has.
Yeah.
I mean, he was outstanding at Ohio State. He was doing so well here at training camp. So I just really hope that he can be back on this team and really do some things for the Browns.
I was at the draft and when they announced him, I went crazy and embarrassed my damn self. And now that he's not signed yet, I'm like, why is he not signed? All right, I gotta go. I keep interrupting y'all.
Day, did I miss the memo on an update on that? Because I'm confused. I'm like you, Kate. What does our office look like? Like, we knew Flacco then. He had Coop at one point. He had somebody he had a rhythm with that he threw to, and he knew he could make something happen. What does that look like today?
I hope David Njoku, because I drafted him on my fantasy team too.
David Njoku suck, Kate.
Listen, here come you see me, Rachel.
You know what? I'm gonna do, Rachel. I'm gonna get in my car and drive right down to that studio now. You say anything else about Chief? All right, I gotta go. Bye. It's been a pleasure.
See you. Safe travels.
Yeah. What'd you say, Stacey?
So I have no faith in Njoku. Not particularly one of my faves. Anytime they want to say, let's put them on a trading block, I'm here for it. Because you got one job, and it's to catch balls, and you don't do that well. So that's my opinion on that. But where do we have with Isaiah Bonds? Do we feel like he gonna fit into the scheme at all?
I'm not mad at Isaiah Bonds. I think he looked good at Texas. I know he previously worked with Tommy Rees and over together at Alabama before Nick Saban retired. So I think Isaiah Bonds can definitely be a good receiver. Um,
So I haven't seen any practices. I really haven't seen him kind of even in the mix a lot. I'm just we need help. We that offense is shaky in my opinion.
I gotta. This is so off topic. Not really, but I just have to say this. This group, I've never seen such a small group of football players in my life. I have to say, I'm a
Thank
gymnast,
you.
okay? We are not tall, weighty people at all. And when I saw one player come up to the microphone, I was shocked.
And you taller than him?
I actually was.
Yeah.
And so I stepped back and, I said to, one of our brothers, I said, I don't think I've ever seen so many small
Little
receivers or
people.
football players
Mhm.
before. And I mean, like, I understand sometimes running backs may be a little short, but a little hefty. But I mean,
Uh-huh.
some of these players
They
are
don't
like,
have no muscle. That's why they keep getting
and they're
injured and
short.
all that. And they little. I'll be like,
Rachel, I am
Yeah.
5'7" on a good day. I promise you, this player was not taller than me.
It's not Elijah. Stacy, what's Elijah's last name? The receiver, he was here last year. I don't know if he on this roster now. But McCoy, Elijah McCoy? That's unfamiliar?
Elijah Moore.
more.
Okay. Yeah,
Elijah Moore. Yeah. I think
he's
he
so
got traded
short.
to the Bills.
Yeah, he's so short. Like I was taller than him, and I'm like 5'6". So I think he's like 5'8".
It's
Yeah,
a
he
lot
was.
of them.
they're
I
definitely.
agree with you. I'm like, Lord, let me get everybody need to get in the middle to the prayer circle at this point because I agree. They little. And I'm like, they fragile. They fragile as a flower. They fragile. Like you could be little, but can you have some muscle to you? Something.
Yeah, he was Elijah Moore. He's listed at 5'10", but he's about 5'8", 5'7". So but Paris, I didn't get a chance to ask you, how does Joe look to you? Everybody in Cleveland is hoping for the 2023 Joe Flacco that, helped get this team to the playoffs despite all the quarterback issues we had that year. Everybody's looking for the 2023 Joe Flacco. It fizzled out. The magic fizzled out in the playoffs, but he had a good first half of that game. But do you think that there's some 2023's magic in Joe still?
I'm gonna be honest with you. Joe Flacco looked good from the first day I saw him.
Okay.
Hands down. And if you really want me to be honest, I really liked Kenny Pickett before he got injured.
Really?
I did. And had Kenny Pickett not gotten injured, one of them rookies would have been off that roster. I think they just probably would not have drafted someone else because you do have Dylan, you have Shador, and then you have that new quarterback that they just picked up last week. So I think that Kenny probably could have stayed because Kenny was really starting to look good. And he was better than both Shador and Dylan. Like it was no brainer. I mean, obviously Joe Flacco was the best, but Kenny definitely was right up there and no doubt better than both Dylan and Shador. Had the injury, now he's gotten traded and wishing nothing but the best for him. But I think Joe Flacco looks good. I think my only concern is that he's just a little older. So I just don't know physically, how his body can take. It's a contact sport. It is, it's a sport that can be very heavy on the body. So that's just my only concern. But in terms of on the field, I mean, there's no other quarterback that we have that can touch him at this point in time. And then he's tall. I hate to say it, but he's tall. He is actually like 6'6".
Yeah.
Whatever height they have for him,
I
that's his
seen
height.
him in Pinecrest like earlier this
He's
week or last week. I was like, yeah, he
You
is.
think he does he live on the east side?
I don't think hardly any of them live on the east side, but he was in Pinecrest.
Yeah, Deshaun Watson live on the east side.
Oh, that's right. He live way out. He do. I forgot he live out in Hunting Valley.
Most are west side, but a couple of them,
Yeah.
live on the east side. And for him to be on the east side like that, he might be an east sider, but him being protected at all costs. You got DeJuan Jones, who at left tackle, who you hope can continue to be healthy this year, and have no injuries because he didn't finish the last 2 seasons. So if
I'm
DeJuan
not
Jones,
confident of that.
well, we gotta
And
hope.
I'm just gonna be honest with you, Rachel. I have seen him, even though he has lost weight, I haven't seen him practice, but I've just seen you walk regularly. And you walk like you hurt. Your walk is an issue to me. You know what I mean? I've seen you not dressed, walking in the mall, down the street. Like that concerns me. Because you walk like you hurt.
Mm.
I don't have all that faith in him. I'm glad you didn't leaned up a little bit, but I'm not real confident.
Paris, how has he looked to you?
He hasn't looked bad. It's just you don't know until you get out there. I think that's my biggest thing. A sore ankle can turn into something else when you got to play 4 quarters.
Right.
So he hasn't looked bad in practice at all. He's looked good, but you just never know how injuries could turn out. You never know what pains could lead to. So I think that might be a small worry for him. In terms of how he can be able to last throughout the season for the games that actually matter. And every game matters, but you're gonna have those games where you're gonna have to put everything on the line. Is he gonna be able to put everything on the line, or is someone else gonna have to come in for him? And if that's if that happens, who's coming in that can really do some work. So but overall the defense hasn't looked bad though. The defense really hasn't looked bad at all. I think it's just the identity of the offense is really what bothered me.
Well, we got a couple of minutes left. I thank you for hanging out with us. I know, I said 15, 20 minutes, but
I enjoyed this.
We appreciate your insight. Going into this Cincinnati game, do you think Kevin Stefanski still has Joe Burrow's number? Even though Cincinnati swept us last season, you got a healthy Denzel Ward as of right now because, there's been some issues with him, and concussions and things like that. He's going to have his hands full, with Jamar Chase on Sunday, and Joe Burrow had one of his best seasons last year. So I think he's prepared and ready for what Cleveland is bringing. But what do you think about some of these matchups when it comes to the Bengals and stuff?
I think that this matchup on Sunday, I do think the Browns could pull it away. They would have to play very clean, very tight. I've even heard from Little Birdie that Mr. Burrow has been feeling some icks here and there. So, that actually might play out, for the hopes of the Browns. Because if that's the case, the defense, I know they could at least, even if our defense might not be 100%, up to par physically. If Joe has one little ick, one little sour feeling, that defense could turn that into something. So, I think it's going to be a good game. I think it might be a closer game than maybe what many people are predicting to be. I don't think it's going to be a blowout. But I think, Joe Flacco, if he can go in there and kind of, get early, throwing some scores on the board, I think the Browns would be pretty okay. I do.
Yeah, obviously Miles Garrett is going to be bringing it. I'm expecting, this defense to be competitive. Another year in what is the defensive coordinator's name? I forgot.
Schwartz,
Um,
Jim Schwartz.
Thank you, Jim Schwartz. Another year in the system, where they can start feeling comfortable and things like that. Joe Flacco, I think, and I'm hoping that he can develop the relationship with Jerry Judy like he had with Amari
Yeah.
Cooper, who announced his retirement today. But, I think one of the keys is going to be Harold Fannin Jr. as well. I look for him to get, some decent playing time because David Njoku is just not consistent. He can't consistently catch the ball for you. And I think, Fannin Jr., he was, a tight end drafted out of Bowling Green, had an impressive career there, probably could have went somewhere else, but academically the grades weren't there. But he put up numbers, and I think his junior year he had the best numbers of a tight end in all of America. So I'm looking forward to Joe throwing him the ball as opposed to David Njoku, who I can't rely to catch the ball.
Agreed.
So
Agreed.
yeah, so that's where I'm at with that. So if Jerry Judy can have that type of game he had against his old team Denver in Denver, we might be cooking with gas.
Yes.
Yeah. But Paris, I don't know if you want to talk. We got 4 minutes left, so I don't know if you want to talk some Guardians with us or not.
Hey, I mean, it's up to you guys.
Come on with it.
Good morning, welcome. So the Cleveland Guardians are taking on Tampa Bay tonight. 4-game series in Tampa Bay. So they almost got swept. So they lost the series against Boston. They almost got swept yesterday. But yesterday they had a huge game against Boston. Winning 8-1 after the outing by Joey Cantillo. They had a whole bunch of runs in the second inning and kind of broke the game open. Do you guys think that this team possibly could make it to a wild card spot with just, they're 3 games out from the last wild card spot? Could they possibly do
Do you want to flip a coin? I mean, if you're asking me to bet, if I had to bet my money on it, I wouldn't put no money down. That's all.
I wouldn't either. And right now I look at the Guardians as a team that if they made it, they're losing the first round.
I hate to say it, but I agree. I don't think this is their year. I also think that they just really experienced some unfortunate losses and roster switch ups concerning or due to their gambling case with 2 of their players. So
Right.
I think that kind of hurt them in some situations. They just haven't had that special spark with them this year. And I think this was just one of those years where it was just the growing pains of reconstructing the roster again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and starting pitching, hasn't been great. It's been okay. It's kept us in some games. Tanner Bybee has given up a ton of home runs. So, you have to play from behind a lot of times, besides the starting lineup. And, one of the issues we have is Kate Smith can't, get the save. He's had 7 blown saves. And if you think about it, that's 7 games. They could be in the top wild card spot right now. But Emmanuel Clase and Luis Ortiz really screwed us over. when and what you do affects other people, and it's affected this team. And the ironic part is that the game that he was accused of cheating in was his best game of the year against the New York Yankees. So, they're obviously not coming back. Who knows, if they'll be able to play next season. But, you know, Emmanuel Clase, who's been more impactful for this franchise, has left it in a bad position without having a true closer. You get Hunter Gaddis coming in there, and Hunter Gaddis was yanked, even though the runs had, people had got on base when he pitched, because he actually got the loss, not Kate Smith, the other day. But, I didn't agree with, Stephen Vogt putting him in against Boston when they were up. What were they up? Because I think the final score was like 7-5 or something like that. Because they came behind and scored 4. When Stephen Vogt put Kate Smith in the 8th inning for a 4-out save, I was like, I already knew that it wasn't going to fare well, and it didn't. So now you're seeing some of the sophomore slumps of Stephen Vogt and some of his, decisions, which are not in the best interest of the team.
And then you can tell it has affected us in why we are where we are today.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see them getting. I don't see. I hate to say it. I just don't see us having that. I agree with you, Paris. This just not that year. I don't see a playoff run this year. I don't see a good postseason games with them. I just don't.
Yeah. And then, you have Jose slumping and Stephen Kwan slumping. The most important time that you need them, they are the offensive leaders on this team. They brought up CJ Kayfish, they brought up George Valera. These young guys, they got rid of Carlos Santana, and to give Kyle Manzardo, more time at first base. But that probably been something you should have done sooner, because
before August.
Yeah.
You should have did that before August.
Yeah. So, it's going to be interesting. They are in charge of their own fate. I had said when they had been playing well after they, went through the 10-game losing streak that I thought that they possibly could catch up to Detroit. It's not going to happen now. I'm trying to look at where they're the Central Division right now, and geez Louise, why can't I find it? It's making me look up hockey. AL Central. AL Central. So yeah, the Royals are still behind them on that wild card spot. So it is what it is. But Paris, I want to thank you so much for doing the show today. Stacy, thank you so much for being here with us. And Paris, I'll see you on Sunday. But
Go Browns.
Great show
Go
today.
Browns.
Fun guest. Yeah, go Browns, go Ohio State. And you've been listening to Her in the Huddle. Oh, George Bendicki, before we leave, he said, what about the OSU student that had his kick, or Lee Corso's last show? That was amazing. Right down the middle. Because remember, he was like, I was a kicker. And Pat McAfee, I guess he was supposed to have somebody that wasn't a kicker, was like, you ain't, he wanted to say you ain't supposed to be doing this, but he was like, my brother was a kicker and I'd go out and kick with him for fun. So $250,000, hopefully that's enough to pay his tuition and stuff like that. So congrats to him. But for Rachel, for Stacy and Paris, you've been listening to Her in the Huddle on WOVU 95.9 FM. We are out of here.